This world operates according to a brutal rule that no one dares to tell you straight. There are people who walk into a room and immediately bend the air around them, and there are people like you who walk in and vanish the moment they appear. You see them. The ones who don't even need to open their mouths yet still make others pivot around them. They command attention. They seize opportunities. They claim power. And you do everything society tells you that you should do. You work harder. You're kinder. You try to be likable, approachable, easy to choose. In return, you get chilling silence. You're interrupted in meetings as if your words are just background noise. You send a message. The screen shows seen, then it falls into an endless void. You stand at a party, trying to slip into the flow of conversation, but eyes glide over you like you're a shadow without mass. You're not hated. Worse than that, you're ignored. And this is the verdict. The world is too polite to say to your face. People don't ignore you because they're cruel. They ignore you because they don't feel any weight from you. Machiavelli saw this 500 years ago. He understood that society doesn't respond to your good intentions. Society responds to signals of power. People from boardrooms to dinner tables, offline to online, all follow the same instinct. They respect what forces them to pay attention, and they disregard what carries no consequences. The human brain isn't wired to register kindness. It's wired to detect dominance cues, confident silence, scarcity, unhurried presence, and the gaze of someone who doesn't need acceptance to exist. You don't emit those signals. You emit predictability, safety, willingness to endure, an invisible hunger to be seen by someone. And so you make yourself background noise, easy to overlook, easy to replace, easy to forget. So face the question most people lack the courage to ask. If tomorrow you vanished from every meeting, every group chat, every party, who would actually be affected? Who would lose something? Who would feel the void you left? Not just as memory, but as loss. If the answer is no one, then the problem isn't that people are evil. The problem is that you've never made your existence carry weight. What would Machiavelli say to you? Not cheap comfort, not just be yourself, and it'll all work out. He would look straight through you, past the moral shell you hide behind, and say being ignored isn't a tragedy. It's a measurement. And if you don't like the number that measurement is showing, then it's time to change your unit of measure. Machiavelli wrote in The Prince that people don't act out of fairness, they act out of self-interest, fear and what serves them first. In his discourses on Livy, he put it even more bluntly. The crowd doesn't respond to what's right. They respond only to what's useful to them. And if you're being ignored, it's not the world's injustice. It's a signal that in other people's equation of self-interest, you're not a necessary variable. Machiavelli would give you 3 ruthless reasons why a person becomes invisible. Reason 1, you're too predictable. People are always wary of what they can't predict, because mystery carries both risk and opportunity. But you're the exact opposite. You reply instantly. You're always ready to explain. You always diffuse conflict to seem agreeable. You give others the right to know exactly what you'll do, say, and react to. And when someone can read you like an old book, they no longer feel the need for you. In American-style workplaces, this shows up clearly. You're the reliable one, the always-there one, the supportive one. Labels that sound nice, but really just mean you don't threaten anyone, and you're easily replaceable. In dating, you're the one texting first, texting more, replying fast. Predictability kills your pull. Reason 2, you have no scarcity. You show up too easily. You give attention too quickly. You're available whenever someone needs you. But in social psychology, anything too abundant loses value. In dating, replying too fast can extinguish attraction more than any other mistake. In the office, the person who always takes on more work is the one overloaded, not the one promoted. In social groups, the person who's always available is the one no one actually waits for. Not because you're not good, but because you're too accessible, and anything too accessible is instinctively taken for granted. Reason 3. Ignoring you carries no consequences. If others lose nothing by overlooking you, they will overlook you. They lose no information, no opportunity, no stability, no sense of security, because you've never made anything that comes from you irreplaceable. Look at an American meeting. Who is never ignored? The person holding critical data, the person with the project keys, the person whose absence would force the whole system to readjust, and who gets pushed to the margins. The hard worker, the nice one, the reserved one. Those qualities make you likable, but they make you completely unessential. And here's the truth. Machiavelli would slap into your awareness. Power doesn't come from being good. Power comes from the ability to force others to take you into account. If your presence doesn't change the picture, they'll ignore you. If your absence doesn't create a hole, they'll forget you. But the most brutal part is the loop you yourself feed. The more you try to please, the more you lower yourself in their eyes. The more you explain, the more you prove your voice lacks the weight to stand on its own. You're not ignored because others are cruel. You're ignored because your behavior has trained them that their attention is a privilege, while your silence carries no risk. And at this point, every excuse falls away. People aren't ignoring you. They're just responding to the role you've taught them to see you in. You didn't learn to be ignored when you grew up. You learned it as a child. The child who had to raise their hand for permission to speak, who had to do right to be praised, who had to be good to avoid punishment. That child quickly understood that recognition isn't a right, it's a reward, and rewards always come with conditions. So you grew up carrying a lesson no one explicitly taught, but everyone absorbed to be seen. You must do something to deserve it. To be heard, you must prove you're reasonable. To be accepted, you must ask permission through the language of deference. When you become an adult, that lesson doesn't disappear, it just changes clothes. You enter relationships carrying an obsession with being fully understood, with others seeing your true intent, with correcting every tiny misunderstanding for fear of being misread. You become addicted to the feeling of others validating you, as if your worth fits neatly inside a "yeah, I get you," and you don't realize that this very addiction has turned you into a hostage of other people's attention. Machiavelli warned back in the 16th century, he who craves to be understood has become the servant. You can't dominate anything while you're still begging someone to see you correctly. But the coldest part of the truth is this. The people who get ignored aren't inferior. They're just trying too hard to explain, too quick to apologize, too generous with things no one asked for. Every justification, every unnecessary sorry, every misplaced act of giving sends the same message. Please see me. Please understand me. Please think well of me. And in that moment, you strip your own value. You place yourself lower when no one even asked you to. Power never comes from explanation. It comes from silence. Respect never comes from excessive kindness. It comes from hard boundaries. Presence never comes from pleading to be seen. It comes from standing firm, whether anyone looks or not. This is the Machiavellian reversal. Most people never accept. You don't become stronger when others see you. You become stronger when your existence no longer depends on their gaze. A truly dangerous person isn't the one everyone knows. It's the one who remains unshaken when no one notices. The one who doesn't tremble in the dark. The one who doesn't beg for the spotlight. The one who stands tall even when no one calls their name. And when that person finally chooses to step into the light, the sheer weight of their presence forces the entire room to realign. You want to know the darkest secret? Machiavelli would surely whisper in your ear, "He who fears invisibility will be swallowed by it." He who embraces invisibility will turn it into a weapon. But Machiavelli wouldn't let you stop at recognizing the wound. He never cared about your feelings. He only cared about turning weakness into leverage. And here's what most people never realize. When you're ignored, you think you're at the bottom of power. But Machiavelli sees the opposite. He calls it the intersection of virtù and fortuna, where individual will can bend fate. Because when you're ignored, you're in a state that those under the spotlight sometimes crave. You're not monitored, not expected, not threatened. No one tracks your every move. No one dissects your every word. No one demands you be right, brilliant or outstanding. You're standing in the shadows, and in the shadows, there are three advantages that those living under the crowd's gaze never get. Advantage 1. Unpredictability. When no one pays attention to you, they don't track you either. And when no one tracks you, no one knows you're changing, training, preparing. You have full license to rebuild yourself without anyone on alert. A predictable person is weak, but a person no one knows what they're becoming, that's a threat. Advantage 2. Total reinvention. Those at the center can't change quickly, because every shift gets dissected. But you, the invisible one, can reconstruct yourself without reaction, without judgment, without resistance. You can change how you speak, your boundaries, your demeanor, your identity, and no one will raise an alarm because, simply, they don't think you matter enough to notice. This isn't a curse, it's a permit to disappear and return as a different creature. Advantage 3. Strategic silence. When people don't expect you to speak, every word you do say suddenly carries more weight. When they don't demand your opinion, a concise, well-timed remark creates impact that a talkative person never achieves. In American workplace culture, you've seen it. The noisy meeting room where everyone competes to speak. Then the person silent the whole time, the one everyone thought was irrelevant, finally opens their mouth. And in that moment, the whole room turns. Not because they're more powerful, but because rarity makes speech valuable. Deliberate silence exerts more pressure than any effort to demand attention. It forces others to recalibrate the weight you bring to the table. Machiavelli understood this when he wrote, "A single appearance of strength is worth more than 1,000 explanations. One well-timed action outweighs a lifetime of talking. One purposeful stand outweighs 100 attempts to be heard. One moment of revealed weight will eclipse all the years you were once taken lightly. You thought your silence was failure. No, it's a weapon you haven't learned to use. You thought invisibility was pain. No, it's the forge where power is tempered. The place where those once overlooked learn to step forward like a shock wave." And here is the conclusion Machiavelli would force you to face. Invisibility is not the enemy. It is the training ground, where you reforge your gaze, reforge your presence, reforge your weight, so that when you reappear, no one can ignore you without paying a price. But recognizing the advantages of invisibility is only half the journey. If before you were ignored because you emitted weak signals, now you must learn to emit the signals of high-value presence, something Machiavelli would call the appearance of authority. And authority isn't an innate quality. It's a technique. It's a strategy. It's something you deliberately create. Principle 1. The signal of scarcity. If you want others to stop taking you lightly, first you must stop giving them unlimited access. You don't reply instantly. You're not always available for a quick 5-minute meeting. You're no longer the person everyone calls when they need anything or lack anything. You don't put out fires that aren't yours. Scarcity creates value, and value begins when you no longer appear on demand from others. Principle 2. Controlled speech. People of status never talk too much. They speak less than 80% of the people in the room, because they understand that silence is the frame that gives weight to every word. You must learn to speak short, sharp, Direct. No roundabout explanations. No padding with "I think." Not sure if this is right. One clear statement is always stronger than 10 qualifying ones. The talkative try to be heard. The concise force others to listen. Principle 3. No reaction. A powerful person never lets others control their nerves. A jab, a slight, a shrug doesn't make you snap back immediately. You pause. You look. You let your silence amplify the other person's clumsiness. Others expect you to react. When you don't, they start to wobble. Machiavelli understood this when he described the most dangerous rulers, not the hot-tempered, but the unpredictable. Your stillness is the counter-strike. Principle 4. Redefine your identity. You are no longer allowed to label yourself with tags that weaken your value. I'm nice. I'm sweet. I like to please others. Those labels are invitations for others to trample your boundaries. Instead, you must speak about yourself and behave as someone decisive, selective, focused, prioritizing. Labels don't just describe, they carve channels for behavior. Change the label, and you change how others treat you. Principle 5. Create consequences for your absence. Machiavelli wrote, "A prince is respected when something collapses in his absence. A person who cannot be ignored is one whose withdrawal creates loss. A skill you possess, information you hold, stability you provide, a capability no one can replicate. If you disappear, and the meeting still runs smoothly, the project still moves, the group stays fine, then you're not central, you're just an accessory. Become the person whose absence makes more noise than others' presence. And when you practice these 5 principles, you will understand a truth Machiavelli saw clearly long ago. Presence is not something bestowed, it is something built. No one suddenly stops ignoring you. They stop ignoring you when you become someone whose ignoring carries risk. And then, as you begin to operate by these principles, a silent but ferocious shift happens inside you. Something Machiavelli called the rebirth of the essence of power. You no longer try to squeeze yourself into conversations. You no longer send messages and sit waiting for replies like a soul trapped between worlds. You no longer walk into a room hoping someone will notice you. You become a different kind of presence, a person who doesn't need to be seen to exist. You appear when you choose, not when others expect. You speak when your words carry weight, not when silence needs filling. You don't beg for attention. You create the direction of attention. You become a vector of influence, something that shapes the space instead of being shaped by it. And this is the final thought Machiavelli would leave you with, like a cold, sharp blade cutting away every last illusion. The world belongs not to those who want to be seen, but to those who cannot be ignored. When you walk into the room with this new version of yourself, others feel it before you even open your mouth. They hear you speak differently, less but deeper. They read your messages differently, no longer dismissing, no longer leaving on read, but responding with consideration. They notice your silence as if it's a language they're forced to understand. When you detach yourself from the need for validation, you don't disappear. You become unavoidable. You no longer ask, "What do they think of me?" You become the one who makes them ask, "What is he thinking? What does he want? What will he do next?" The initiative shifts from their hands to yours. The power dynamic between you and the world reverses. You no longer chase others' gaze. They must adjust themselves to your presence. This isn't arrogance. This is the ultimate state of self-mastery, where you are no longer driven by the craving for acceptance, but by clarity about your own value. You become a fixed point in others' psychology, someone they cannot take lightly, cannot predict, cannot replace. And when you reach this point, you will realize a truth, that everyone who has climbed out of the abyss of invisibility understands you were never truly invisible. You just hadn't learned how to make your appearance an event. Now the choice is yours. You can go back to being a shadow. The one who waits, explains, asks permission, or you can step into the cold but fiery journey. Machiavelli laid out the journey of the one who no longer seeks the gaze, but forces the world to look at them. If you want to continue the journey of reclaiming your own weight, hit subscribe so you don't miss any transformation step. See you in the next video, where we'll dive even deeper into the art of becoming someone the world has no choice but to notice.